Like I have a YouTube channel where I'm just getting rejected all day. It's still, uncomfortable, but, realize that it's a skill that you can get better at. And then when you actually get rejected, you're learning and you're actually getting closer to something that you won't get rejected on. And you start realizing.
Welcome to The Creator's Adventure, where we interview creators from around the world hearing their stories about growing a business. Today's guest built a business without funding that is currently generating over $80 million a year. Today, he will show how you can build a business in a weekend. Hey everyone, I'm Bryan McAnulty, the founder of Heights Platform. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, we're here today with Noah Kagan. He is the Chief Sumo, aka CEO at AppSumo, currently generating $80 million a year in revenue. It's the #1 software deal site where online entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and SaaS businesses start and become sumo-sized. He also runs a YouTube channel guiding 1 million plus subscribers toward financial freedom. And before AppSumo.com, he was the 30th employee at Facebook, reporting directly to Mark Zuckerberg, and the 4th employee at Mint.com. Noah, welcome to the show.
Good to be here. I was like, wow, what a cool intro. I was like, have I done all those things? It sounds a lot more sexy when you say it now, but part of the man, it's been a long time on those things with a lot of things that didn't work out along the way too. But good to be here.
Yeah, well, I followed you for a while. I remember back when AppSumo launched and like seeing you in like 2010, 2011, what you were doing with it back then. So definitely it's been interesting to see all of that and the evolution and how massive it is and what it's become today.
Yeah, I mean, I don't believe the size. And you could also argue maybe it's still small.
Yeah,
which is kind of crazy to think too.
Yeah.
And our ambition is not how do we make more money. It's not like none of us wake up excited about that. We like the deals, we like the tools, we like the entrepreneurs. And I think part of success with just all these things really when AppSumo from 2010 till now is finding something people really want that becomes a larger market and then really sticking with it. There's not enough sex appeal in sticking with things. Like we need more sexiness in that, where it's like find something that people actually want, find it, don't make it, and then stick with it for an exceptionally long period of time. In the book $1 Million Weekend and in general, I talk about law of 100, which is just give yourself 100 days or 100 attempts or 100 swings, whatever it is. So at least you're not quitting too soon.
Yeah,
I just think people
really
give
like
up
that.
way too early.
I feel such a large amount of confidence in myself and my business because I know that I'm sticking with it and I know everybody else won't. And yeah, I think there should be more people talking about this because everybody talks about the quick win of how you can do something really quick, but they don't talk about, you can do things quick as you talk about in the book. You can validate things quick, you can figure things out quick to move forward. But if you stick with it, that's where the magic happens.
It really is. It really is. Like people get it backwards where they're sticking with losers too long is the problem though. Or they just never start, right? Those are the two things I'm seeing. It's like they never just get started. And I'm like, how many customers do you have? Like, oh, I need to worry about scale. Like, I'm using Heights platform. How do I scale? I'm like, how many people have you helped? 0. I'm like, okay, let's just get one. Let's just do one today. Don't worry about doing so many. And then finding that thing that people want the help on quickly. And then once you do that, really enjoying the boring. If your business is boring, it means it's working. And just keep doing that or find ways to make that sustainable for yourself. And I think there's a lot of beauty in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And making those processes enjoyable and how you deliver your services and what you're creating. So one of the questions I want to ask you that I ask everybody on the show is, what would you say is the biggest thing either that you did or you are doing that helped you to achieve the freedom to do what you enjoy?
I mean, I think the two things that helped me, maybe a few things here, but when I got started, I was always trying every weekend. I was just trying and trying and trying and trying and trying. And I think if you try enough times, eventually it will work. And luckily in business, you only need one thing to work, just one, for it to be successful. I think next was I did have a dream of what my life could look like. I didn't always
Mm,
believe it could be possible, but you said like, how did you do these things to get here? I think you have to know what here looks like. Maybe it's living in Hong Kong. Maybe, like me and my girlfriend, we split our time between Austin and Barcelona. And so thinking about doesn't even have to be 10 years. Sometimes that's so far away. Like even, a year. Where do you want the December 31st to end up and have that belief? And then I always had a dream that, oh, man, these day jobs suck and they seem risky. Maybe there's one day I could have my own business. That seems less risky and a really amazing life to live. And then third, I noticed what I was just always doing for free. I've been blogging since 2000, right? Twitter, I was one of the first people in 2006. Same with YouTube, posted videos 2006. Got to meet those founders at Facebook. And I just, I call it the free line, which is like what I've just liked to doing, whether people are reading or no one's watching, is just promote things. I like it. I love it. I love it. I'm like, oh, have you read this book, Million Dollar Weekend? I love it. Go tell people about it. Oh, there's an entrepreneur I think is doing such cool things. John Paul DeJoria. Oh, go promote him. And I think everyone has that in them. Everyone has discipline. Everyone's not lazy on certain things. Everyone has things they like to do. And I think we either get ashamed of it or we don't fully recognize it. And then when you actually embrace it and you're like, I can really just do knitting as a business. Yeah, you can. I really can do a show where I talk to a microphone and someone else is there and like that's my business. Yeah, you can. And I think that finding that and then being less embarrassed about it over time and just embracing it, where I was like,
mm.
okay, I like starting things and telling people about them. I think has led me to where I am today.
Yeah, it's an excellent answer. And the way I like to say it with that point is how I've thought about it. If you can do something today that regardless of the outcome or result from it, you would do it again tomorrow, then like you win. Like that's you get to do the thing that you enjoy. And that should be I think people forget that the reason that they want to start a business is to reach that point and not make money. Because after a certain point, the money, that's not the fulfillment. It's doing the things that you enjoy.
It's ironic is that when you do the thing not to make money, so we talk about in the book Freedom Number, when you do whatever you can when you do the thing you actually enjoy to make a little bit of money and you're not trying to make a lot is actually how you make a lot.
Mm,
Which is, I mean, it sounds appealing and it's easy and it's like, cause it is, but I think people get so fixated on these like AI chat something, whatever, blogging, crypto fad of the moment, which is not always a bad
yeah.
thing. They chase that down the rabbit hole and they're like, oh, it's hard. It's like, well, find the thing that's hard that you enjoy. And, for me, I don't know if I'm always going to make the tools, but talking about these tools. And I think that's a really great advice that you gave.
Thanks. Yeah. And I like and agree with the way that you look at it as well. So what you talked about just starting, in your book, The $1 Million Weekend, it's about helping entrepreneurs launch profitable businesses fast. And we saw in the first part of the book there, you're highlighting how the biggest issue that people have is they simply don't start. And instead they keep procrastinating, coming up with these excuses or trying to wait until they have the perfect product or service that they can get going. And at Heights Platform, I feel I get to witness the same thing every day. That I get to see thousands of creators and what they're building, and they work so hard on their content. But the number one reason that I see people fail is that they simply fail to actually get it out there. And so when I saw you working on this book and how it could help creators in that situation, that's when I went and I bought 50 copies of them because I knew that this is something that will help my customers and help them all get going. And so that's why I bought a bunch. I want to give them away to my customers to help them out. And I really related to the idea that you talk about in the book of the now not how ideology. So that said, um, can you expand a little bit more on all that? Maybe like what made you come up with that idea, or like is there a story you could share of like what originated that idea?
So tell me someone who signed up with Heights platform recently,
Um,
or like any type of coach or person that creating on the platform, or someone that comes,
just so many.
first one that comes to mind.
First one that comes to mind, I guess. I'm not seeing what they're doing often enough. I'm seeing like I'm seeing just the problems that they have and how to fix them. There's so many. I guess I'm talking to one. I'm interviewing one later today about design, UX design. They teach one. He's really successful though.
Right.
He's doing excellent. One they're struggling with more is like a music academy. They're trying to teach,
Music
I think,
Academy.
about.
Great. So there's this big misconception that you can like create a bunch of content, YouTube videos, Twitter, and then you send a course or product out and then you just get rich and you never have to talk to anyone. It's like I don't. This is not to sound arrogant, but I'll just say put it in perspective. So like I'm worth whatever tons of money supposedly in this society. Like today, this morning for 4 hours, it was about 4 hours. I think I got up at 7 till almost 12, 7 to 11, 4 hours. I was just texting people who bought the book one by one. And people are like, well, how do you get rich? And I'm like, you just do it one by one. And then, yeah, you're going to do all these advanced things. Like I've created a course in the past. We built our own software, which sucked. So I'm glad there's people like you out there that provide templates now. It was called Monthly 1K. And this is the thing you can copy. I'll just give you our playbook around it. And I think we've put out articles on AppSumo's blog or on noahkagan.com. And the whole point was like, how do you do it so manually that you have so many customers that you have to use a platform like Heights? And most people want to skip that part. And then you skip all the understanding of the customers. So that's a key thing. Then we can I'll give specific stories. I think the other side of that is that people want to teach what they want, not what the customer wants. I want to do a music academy. Maybe your customers don't care about it being in a music academy. Maybe they want to play music to go on a date. Maybe your people actually want to make a beat so they can play at parties and they want to be their own DJ when their friends come over. Maybe they actually want to make it a career. Maybe. And so my point here is that when you do it manually, and let me show you an example of now, not how. I got an email this morning from a guy named Martin. And this is not in courses, but it's all the same concepts of now, not how. He emailed his family and friends and said, I'm selling meatball sandwiches. I was like, meatball sandwiches? You're selling balls to people? He's like, yeah, meatball sandwiches, $9.95. Here's the 4 options. Does anyone want a meatball sandwich? And a lot of times people want to laugh, and that's good. It should be funny. But also these things are people want to convince you that they're more complicated. They want to convince you that you have to buy more things or that you don't know what you're doing. And that's just not the reality. The reality is that email is now, not how, which everyone can do right now. You open your phone, you have 150 contacts here. You open social media, you can post right now, hey, I'm looking for 3 people I want to teach guitar to. You could do that right now. And you don't have to, people will then make excuses. Well, no, you have all these people. It's like, one, you could create a network of people over time, like I've done, or you have people in your network already. And so I would encourage people to think about right now, who do you already have access to that you can assist? And every time I've personally, over the 20 years of starting companies, gone outside of my zone of influence, doesn't mean it can't work. Doesn't mean it can't. You're making it harder on yourself. And you don't have to. And when I've come back into who I have in my phone book, really, and my texting and WhatsApp and social media, Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, whatever, you can make it a lot easier on yourself right now. And I think most coaches want to skip that part. And the beauty, like when I did Monthly 1K, I had people, they paid me $100. I had 6 of them. That was our first beta group. And that's what created the course that went on to sell millions of dollars. But that taught me so much doing it manually. It taught me that people needed accountability. It taught me that people were afraid. It taught me that people never started. It taught me the words they used. And then if you go to Monthly 1K, you'll see all of our wording is based on the words of our customers. And for everyone who's a coach, I would really think about, okay, how do I get 3 customers this weekend? And if I can't, you reach out to people and they don't want to be your customer. Awesome. How come? Those are great moments.
Yeah.
Right. Like I got rejected this morning. This guy who I did a show with, supposed to go on, didn't go on. Oh, cool. Hey, I'd love to know how come the show's not going on. Like, didn't we do this stuff? Oh, sorry, I'm traveling. Okay, great. Thanks for telling me. And these are all good opportunities for people to keep improving. And like your story and mine, Bryan, if you get started and then you find something coaching people want, which people do want to improve, then you stick with it. You're going to have $1 million business on your hands.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I always tell everybody to focus on the result and like you say, focus on the problem, not the idea. And what I've seen in relation to that, I want to go into this even deeper. One of the things that
Yeah.
happens, people start their business and they say, okay, I'm going to sell this product online. It's going to be passive. I get to have it up and then there's going to be sales come in. And so that means to them, I don't want to get on the phone with somebody. I don't want to have a live chat. Like it's supposed to happen magically is how they all say, right? And the live chat, the phone call, especially in the beginning, like that's gold. Like that's everything you want because if somebody messages you through that live chat, there's so much value in that of like, okay, are they going to buy from you? Can you get them to buy? Okay, great. If they don't buy from you, what are they asking you? If they're asking a question, then did you answer that correctly on your landing page? Maybe not. And all of that stuff is so valuable. And it feels like you're cheating almost versus the approach of, okay, we have this product we have to build. Let's think of all the ways to build it and then make it all perfect and then tell everybody versus just ask everybody, hey guys, what's your problem right now? And then going and solving it for them.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I love thinking about the problems people have, and really, you're helping others. And let me be clear: this can lead to ads. This can lead to content. This can lead to you not having to talk to people, as
Yeah.
well. You don't have to do the work over time. So people are like, "Well, I don't want to do all that. I want to buy some expensive course that'll tell me how to just buy ads." It's like, why don't you just save the money? You don't need to spend that money. Get it going, and then yeah, invest the money just in the business. Right. So over time with AppSumo, was able to start that kind of thing in a weekend. But over time, like I haven't done a deal in, I don't know, 13 years. And I think people miss out that they're like, oh yeah, I guess it leads to that. But why
Yeah.
don't you start just like a house or a building, build a good foundation?
Yeah. And I mean, it can be enjoyable to get that information and be learning as you're doing everything. And in the book, you gave the example of when you first founded AppSumo, you sell these codes for the deals, and you gave out 200 codes by hand, and worried about the automation later. And I see all the time people saying, "Oh, how can I want to make sure I automate this before I launch it." And it really doesn't matter. And I know I got caught in that same mentality as well in the past. I still have a business card printing business, and I think like a couple years went by before I actually started it because the vendors I wanted to work with didn't have an API. And I was so worried, man, all these orders are going to come in. How am I going to like fulfill that? I have to manually have myself or somebody go in and place the order with the vendor. And then I realized like that would be an excellent problem to have if there's really so many orders that we can't just do it ourselves. So then I launched it and it worked. And I've done that for that business has existed almost 12 years now. And so yeah, I think it's really a great thing to not worry about automation in the start.
Yeah, and there's so many places to find, like for this music people, there are places like if you can go try to post on Reddit. You can go to try to post on in America. We have a thing called Nextdoor, which is like local communities. You have groups all over. You can try to post it in other places. But I strongly believe if it's hard to get started in the beginning, it's not going to get easier. It's going to get harder. So find the thing
Mm,
that is easy and make it easier on yourself so that you're like, wow, people really want this. And I think too many people have solutions. They're like, I want to coach someone on my sales process. It's like, well, maybe they don't want your sales process. Maybe they actually just want to make some money for themselves. Maybe they want to use it to get their first client. I think me and you are on the same page here, which is just going communicating with these people, listening to them, seeing if you can help them. You're able to then solve that problem, and it gives them what they actually want, not what you want.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So in the second chapter of the book, it's all about the power of asking and reinterpreting the way that we face rejections. And you offered some different interesting examples from your childhood, um, your career, and your father's life about asking for things you want and following up again. I think most people, whether they want to start a business or not, they're just terrified of putting themselves out there and facing rejection. In your opinion, what's something that's different in your life that has helped you to embrace that rejection as part of success compared to others who would rather avoid it?
Rejection still stings. I think people might think like, oh, he gets rejected. And like, I have a YouTube channel where I'm just getting rejected all day. It's like, it's still, uncomfortable, but, realize that it's a skill. And then people, it's a skill that you can get better at. And then when you actually get rejected, you're learning and you're actually getting closer to something that you won't get rejected on. And you start realizing, let's take a step out here. When you think about your businesses, coaching businesses, whatever types of businesses people are starting out there, the essence of all of it is asking someone for something. You're asking someone to give you money, which is their time, in exchange for some service. That's an ask. Whether you do it with ads or, YouTube videos, or whether you do it manually one-on-one or with email, it's all asking. If you want a wife, you have to ask. If you want a raise, you have to ask. And people have this very negative impression of asking. They think we're bothering people. And they're like, I teach people the coffee challenge, which is asking for 10% off when you get coffee. And people are like, why are you trying to get discounts and hurt small businesses? It's like, no, I don't. I actually want the opposite. I don't want anyone to give the discount. I want people to practice it, get rejected from the discount, and then realize it's not so bad. And I'm getting texts now all the time. Like this guy Stetson, he was like, I was so scared of what everybody else was thinking. And when I did it, no one else cared. And when you practice it and you start having maybe rejection goals. So let's say you're doing a course or a business. You're like, I'm going to try to contact 5 people today. I'm going to try to get 5 rejections. You'd be surprised. So in $1 Million Weekend, we have a dollar challenge as well, which is to show people the practice of starting and asking. And I did it on the street, asking people for $1. And I was like, I'm going to get 10 rejections here. That was my rejection goal. And I could not get rejected. It was actually a really weird thing. It was just like, everyone kept giving me $1. I'm like, hey, I'm reading this book, $1 Million Weekend. I'd like you to reject me. And the reality, though, here, Bryan, is that people don't think of this as what's really holding them back. They think, oh, I don't have enough computer stuff. Oh, I have to watch another YouTube video about some guru going to teach me something. That's my actual problem. And I know that the two things really is that they haven't gotten started really, and they need to work on how they get better at asking. And then when they get rejected on asking, it's all learning. Like we did this book launch for $1 Million Weekend. The first thing I do is I ask the team, like, hey, what's everything that went well and what's all the things that didn't work? So in the future, we can do a better launch. That's how you get better. You want to improve in anything, get rejected or make a mistake, or even if it goes well, and get feedback on it. And that's how you'll keep improving. Hey, your customer didn't buy from you? Great. Thank you so much. I'm curious, how come you don't want to buy it? Someone did buy it? Hey, thank you so much. I'd love to know how come you did buy it. And you realize that, these things that we're so afraid of are never as scary as they are in reality. And when you practice it and you start getting better at it and better and better and better, you start realizing the upside of all these things really is unlimited. And that's really one of the key things that's held most people back from getting what they want in life. Because if you don't ask for it, you're never going to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the ways I like to frame the problem of dealing with some of those rejections early on. And I think like getting that first dollar is super important. But beyond that, like somebody who achieves a great amount of success earlier than somebody else, like maybe almost immediately, whether that's some portion related to time or luck or just how they built their product or service. In some ways, I think that's actually scary because if you hit that success right away, then you didn't get rejected. You didn't face these other problems. You don't have information versus the person who actually got rejected 100 times and then finally figured it out. Once they figured it out, now they're set. But the person who was successful immediately and has never experienced those other things, I feel like they might actually struggle more.
Yeah. Well, I know everyone's gone through something hard in their lives. And everyone has a moment where a bad thing actually turned out to be a great thing. Like I didn't get into college, but because I didn't get into college, this other thing happened, which was amazing. Right. For me, I got fired twice. Right. And it was pretty public at the time when I was fired, and I was really ashamed and embarrassed, but that led me to then be like, all right, I never want someone controlling my livelihood. I'm going to be an entrepreneur now. Let me go figure that out. And that led me to where I am today, which is like so cool. I don't think I would have, it would have been different, but it's so much better from that. And I think when we've looked at rejection as such a negative, like what if it's a positive?
Yeah.
What if it's actually a good thing? Like you get rejected, Maybe person didn't want it, but there's something else they do want. And now you didn't spend 6 months building something no one wanted. Great. Thank you for the rejection. I always like when people, if someone rejects me, great, thank you. Or someone gives me feedback if I ask for it, I'm like, great, thank you. And you are right. But I think it's scary still. It's scary what could happen if you get what you actually want. It's scary if they say yes, but I think people will be surprised how many people in the world want to conspire for them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an excellent point. In your book, you also talk about the way to understand if a business idea is even worth investing time into by running this quick calculation to understand how many customers you'll need to reach this goal amount. Can you talk more about how entrepreneurs can come up with that like idea or pricing model for their business and your thoughts about like that versus making a traditional kind of business plan?
Yeah. My business plan has always been to make money. And I know there's Harvard and these other places, but like if they're so good, how come everyone from Harvard isn't a successful entrepreneur that wants to be? Now, the bigger problem, there's in the book, and there's a ton of details, and at milliondollarweekend.com, there's a ton of details, and you're giving your people books about how to do the analysis. And it's all quick, right? Because everyone is busy. You have a kid, you got a wife, you got, I don't know how many companies, you got a team, you got stuff going on. We don't have time to waste. So a lot of my stuff is very quick, fast, and cheap. And the bigger takeaway, though, what I'm noticing from people that are not having as much success as they want is they're just working in smaller markets. Right. So if you take, Music Academy, I think that was a recent one. Okay, how many people want to go to Music Academy versus how many kindergartners or elementary kids want to play piano? Okay, that's actually kind of interesting. Right? Or if you want to teach tuba versus teaching flute. Or if you want to teach like how to be a music professional versus teaching guitar. And so what I'm trying people to think about here is don't overthink it. I've had someone tell me like, I spent all Friday researching. I'm like, that's not what I want you to do. I want you to spend like an hour max researching. And the key points here is that you want to be mindful of the market potential. Can you make $1 million for yourself in this market? The other thing that I've seen from, these analysis is that it's hard to know how things are going to go until you go. And so things are going to shift, and that's okay. But you at least want to have some indication that like the numbers are going to work out, and the spreadsheets and templates are free, and I give them for everyone. But I'm seeing this where there's a woman who I've been talking about who read $1 Million Weekend. She made $50,000 using the framework to build a greeting card business. It's called marymakery.com. What's interesting though is because she's been doing greeting cards, now people are asking her to do design work. And I believe last week she got a 5-figure contract for design work.
Wow.
And she had
That's
a day
awesome.
job like everyone else, right? She worked at, standard companies that are pretty popular, but nothing, no unique social media, huge following. You don't need a huge following to have a huge wealth. But, in terms of these math and stuff, you do need to make sure you're in a market that has the potential, if not already, to be $1 million opportunity for you. You do have to get started because things will evolve, and then understand like, okay, how hard will it be to actually make $1 million for myself? And, as I've done these things, you're like, holy crap, software in certain categories like AppSumo, I was like, wow, this can definitely do it. And I just did another one. The video came out on YouTube last week where I was trying to do a lawn care business as an example. That was really hard to make $1 million. I like knocked on doors to try to sell people lawn care. And then I was like, well, I know a lot of people, and again, I think the best businesses are the ones where you're the first customer. And if you've taught anyone anything, or if people have acknowledged you for anything in the past, those are great businesses to revisit. And so for me, I've been in software for a long time. I've built a lot of software. I like software, and I also like deals. So I thought about what, I went on my credit card bill and I was like, what are the tools I'm paying for at AppSumo that I don't like paying for? And I was like, oh, this, I hate these digital signature tools. I hate all the subscriptions to them. Maybe we can create a one-time payment forever for them. And so you go look online, and this is the point of that analysis, is that like DocuSign just by itself is $11 billion.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's insane, right? And so you're like, oh, that's the whole point, is that there's not that's the only metric, but okay, that's an indicator that there's maybe, if not a million, at least $1 billion of money that could be had for myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's great. One of the kind of like formulas that I've said for people in like the online course world is to look at the product that you're making and multiply whatever price you have in your mind by 1,000. And if that was the lifetime of that product, what you got from it, would you be happy with that result? Because sometimes people have this market that's maybe not that big, like you say, and then they think about $20 product. It's going to be really hard to make money with selling something for 20 bucks versus if you can make something it's for this very small market, but it's really targeted, gives them everything they need. It's the perfect solution, and it's a $2,000 product. Now you've got potentially $1 million business.
Yeah, I think people probably over and under optimize pricing. They over optimize it before while they're getting going, and they under optimize it after they've gone.
Hmm.
Because I think you got to be mindful of it, but I think more importantly, you got to make something that people are actually excited to pay you for. I will say I have seen through our course, which has been fascinating. We've tried like all these different price points, and I swear to God, it's been crazy. Really, when people pay more, they do more.
Hmm.
I know it's obvious, but I remember, okay, I'll make it cheap so people get it. We had it as like, never gave it for free because people didn't do shit. I saw that. We had it like 1, 7, 10, 20, 100, 50 now, 100, 300, 600. And there is optimal price points. So as you do in the business longer, I would think about that. There's definitely opportunity
Yep.
there. But I will say like the lower price point people definitely, and we look at the numbers, like they don't ever really do the course. They don't ever then also come back to AppSumo and do anything else ever again. They're kind of just like, oh, cool, a cheap free thing. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that is something to be mindful of do you have a customer that has one money? And then for me, I think when we create this stuff, it's exciting to see people get results, and your best marketing is successful customers. So you want more
Yeah,
people buying your course, get more successful
definitely.
people.
Yeah, at the same time, yeah, to that point, I would say definitely in the beginning, don't be worried about that too much. You want to get them. You want to get the customer. So the money is not as important there. If you can start getting those testimonials and the feedback, the results and all of that, then your price can always go up and be refined.
It can adjust, and I think people think it's fixed.
Yeah. So by reading the book, myself and my team were curious that we were reading about your entrepreneurial experiences in your life, and you can see that one of the patterns that kind of contributed to your success was being associated around all these interesting people. First, there was your father working in sales, handling rejection, your schoolmates, your business partners, friends in tech, coworkers at Facebook, and so on. So, would you agree that our path in life is shaped by the people that we spend time with? And if that's true, then what would you suggest to somebody listening right now on how they can make the most out of their acquaintances?
People want to make excuses for themselves why they're not succeeding, and then they want to look at someone else and say, well, they had all these advantages. And then I like to think about like who are all these people that are still succeeding without any advantages. So let's take one guy for instance named Paddy Galloway. Paddy Galloway's in like Scotland. I don't even know where Scotland is on a map, and it sounds like a great place. He has everyone in his town makes £30,000. They all have the standard jobs at mills and things like that. And today, that kid, who I think he's 27, so maybe he's not a kid, young man. Yeah, I'm an adult now. I say stuff like that. Is now making 7 figures a year helping Red Bull, the Eagles, Mr. Beast with their YouTube channel. So the question there is like, well, okay, he didn't grow up in Bay Area. He doesn't have, his parents have very blue collar jobs, and he can do it. And so I want to discourage people from thinking that in business you have to have there's the beauty of a business is that you don't need to have any geographical advantage. You don't have
Mm.
to be tall. You don't have to be a gender, and you can still win no matter what. And yes, I did have advantages. I don't discount that. And I don't think people should either. If you have advantages, use them. That's the whole point. But also if you are don't have, if you didn't have two parents or you were born a heart, doesn't mean you can't succeed. And then the question is, how do you start putting yourself in places to succeed? Right? Like there's a lot. How many people came out of the Bay Area that are not successful? A ton. I have a ton of friends. And also success is, it depends how you label that, right? Like maybe you have a day job and you have a side hustle with, maybe it's mowing lawns or business cards and you're super happy about it. I think everyone should have a side hustle or be an entrepreneur so that at least they can learn about themselves and then have an option in case their boss wants to fire them. I had that happen to me twice. Now, in terms of being in places, I think there's a few ways you can approach how do you increase your chances of luck,
Yeah,
right? So the way that,
that's what I'm getting at. That's what I think is something that you're great at
yeah,
finding a way to connect with these different people who you've met in your life
yeah, and I don't
and
think
be
you
able
were trying
to.
to criticize me. I just what I'm observing from others is that they're like, well, he has a lot of advantages. It's like, so when I
Mm,
was in 2004 working at Intel, living at my mom's house, like, what advantage did I have? Like, yeah, I had parents, I had a house, I didn't have to pay rent. Totally, I was at Intel doing supply chain. It's like I was literally where most people else are. Right, I worked at Office Max. Like, I mean, all these things are. I don't think I had a ton of other advantages that are not available to everyone. Now, here's ways you can meet a lot of other people. And I think meeting other people has been one of the biggest game changers for me. And not just the average of your five, it's the average of who all you spend your time around. And so, number one is pre-fluencers. So, how are you looking and connecting with people that are rising? Because most people are trying to meet the people that they think they want to meet, and those people either aren't available or aren't going to be as helpful. But connecting with other people I found interesting. So, for me, the easiest thing you could do today is think about anyone who you already like and just ask them who's one person you find impressive. That's it. And you can actually find people. Like, I've met someone because I rented his parking spot. I rented a parking spot from this guy, and I was just like, "What'd you do to get a parking spot?" He's like, "Oh, I sold a software company." I was like, "What?" Yeah, now I do like he doesn't, it turns out to be $1 billion real estate company, but I just rented his parking spot and took him out to lunch. And guess we go back to the beginning. I just asked him. So for anyone else out there, try to meet people earlier on and just, even if you don't have to be, I don't know, businessy, just say, hey, I like what you're doing. So how do you find these people? Go to places that you're curious. I think networking events are kind of crappy. I would never want to go to one ever again because it's just kind of people looking for transactions. And
mm.
I think it's hard when everyone's just trying to sell you a service to each other. So number one, look for pre-influencers. You can do that as well through referrals. Number two, put yourself out there. So probably my most valuable thing is just like I'm public. And you don't have to be public. You can be behind the camera. You can not use your face. But I found that like some of the most return I've gotten is that I'm kind of constantly meeting people. And it's awesome. It's so cool to meet all these amazing people. Right. And I met, most of the people that I've known that have helped with this book launch, even for millions, are people I met before their books ever came out, before they were, anything. And it was just like people I wrote about. Like I wrote about Ramit, or I wrote about Tim, or I wrote about Lewis Howes, or I wrote about all these different people because I thought they're interesting. So again, put yourself out there, and I think it attracts them. I would say the last thing is really thinking about how can you help other people. And a lot of this advice, it's one of these things that everyone hears and no one does. And so just choose, are you going to be the one person that does it today? So here's, if especially someone in your audience, Bryan, you know what I would do? I would try to be so freaking successful that you'd be excited to promote me. That's what I would do. So if you're using the Heights platform, how do you be communicating with Bryan your wins? Bryan, I got a new customer. Bryan, here's the feedback. And then guess what? What do you think Bryan's going to do? Because it makes Bryan look good if he's having successful customers. Bryan's going to promote the hell out of you on all these shows, on his podcast and all these things. And so in your own business, how do you help partners, customers, anyone succeed a little more? Can you send them a gift? Can you tell them how they're helping you? Like I still do this day. I was on a show a few days ago, and this woman she had really great questions. Her name was Ellen Yin. And I just messaged her the next morning. I was like, hey, that was so great. I loved your questions. Thank you. And then she replied, and then she even tweeted about the reply, which that wasn't my intent. But I was just like, hey, I wanted to help her and let her know I really appreciated it. Or another guy who helped with the book launch, Lewis Howes, I'm sending him some shoes. He really likes shoes. Shoes. And one, I like it. And like, I think my love language stuff, gift giving, all that stuff. But I think there's an interesting thing here. It's like, how do we today, right now, help one other person? Can you promote some other person? Can you compliment some other person? Can you send a gift to the other person? Can you let a person know you appreciate them? And I think those are ways that when you need people, who can you really text? I think that's the test I've been noticing for myself where, fuck, man, can I text this person to really say, hey, can you get my back here when I need you? And thinking about it, like right now, today, who would you text if you're starting X business or if you need 5 customers or you want to ask someone for a referral? And if you don't have that one, great. You can start that today. You can start helping people. You can start connecting people. You can, in the Heights platform, start reaching out and connecting with other creators to help them.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. I know we got to wrap it up here. Some really thoughtful answers to those questions that you gave. one thing I want to mention is I watched your interview on Tim Ferriss's podcast, four
Thank you.
hour long interview there. And that was after it was edited too, I guess. But I want to mention to anybody else, if you're not really familiar with Noah too much yet, I would encourage you to watch that, to check out his YouTube channel, because from that podcast, Noah, I think it was really clear that you just have this genuine interest. Like you're really in it as an entrepreneur. You're not just trying to promote yourself. Like you were genuinely curious about like, well, what can you learn from Tim on that show? And so I enjoyed watching it. And I think that will be clear to anybody else who watches that and learns some more from you as well. Before we get going, I have one more
Thank you.
question. I like to have every guest ask a question to the audience. So if you could ask our audience anything today, whether it's something you're curious about, something
Yeah.
you want to kind of get everybody thinking about, what would that be?
Yeah. What's the one thing you can do for your business today? Right now, today. Let me know about it, and maybe I'll post it myself online at Noah Kagan.
Awesome. And where else can people find you online?
$1,000,000weekend.com has all the newsletter and links, and then at Noah Kagan everywhere. But yeah, I would love everyone to take some action, get a customer, post yourself, put yourself out there, it's a risk, but it's also risky not living the life you want to live. I think people will be surprised what they find out, and let me know about it.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Noah.
Namaste.